Important question. Which detective is better? Sherlock Holmes or Hercule Poirot? I know, I didn't pronounce that right. But you know what I mean. Which one is better? That's actually, Today, I am going to be recommending some of my favorite whodunit murder mysteries. So if you were like me and you watched Knives Out and you were like, I need more of this in my life, not to worry, I am here with tons of recommendations. I'm obsessed with these manor houses full of rich white people with dangerous pasts and want to kill everyone. Yeah. So, mostly I will be recommending films, but I do have, I think, 4 or 5 books to recommend as well. So let's get started with the films. First on the list is An Inspector Calls. Stars Professor Lupin. I don't remember the actor's name. So for our storyline, we've got this family in this massive estate in the English countryside. They're all getting together to celebrate the engagement of one of their children to another rich person's child, you know. And while they're having dinner, this inspector shows up and demands to talk to all of them about this recent death that has happened. And they're all confused because they're like, we don't know this person. Like, why are you interviewing us? And what comes out are all of these secrets, but it's so much more than that because there's this massive twist at the end. I made my husband watch it with me the day after I watched it because I was just so in love with it. He loved it as well, and I've recommended it to all my family members. Highly recommend. And if you have Amazon Prime, you can watch it for free. And then tell me after you watch it if I'm not the only one who was unable to call that twist, because my husband got it right away, but I didn't. I never do. Next up, we've got Gosford Park. This one has got such a star-studded cast. Got Maggie Smith, Sir Michael John Gambon, aka Dumbledore, Helen Mirren, Clive Owen, so many amazing actors. This movie actually kind of inspired Downton Abbey. It has very much Downton Abbey vibes. We've got the upstairs where all of the guests are staying at this massive house. There's this hunting party that all of these guests have been invited to, and then we've got downstairs where all of the servants are working, and we get different perspectives from the servants, but then also from the guests as this murder happens, and they all end up being stuck in this mansion where they're being questioned. And the twist at the end, again, I never call it, but it was so good. Like, there's one twist and then another one, and then it gets really, really twisty, and then like this massive twist. So if you like twisty ones and you like the idea of like British hunting party out in the countryside, it's kind of rainy and foggy, and you have amazing actors playing pretty despicable characters, then this one is for you. I may have found it on the internet somewhere that you don't have to pay for it. If you do, you know, some digging, you can. I don't do that. What are you talking about? And then next we've got The Lady Vanishes. This one is once again set in England, I think in like the 1940s? I think it's the 1940s. This one is set on a train. So if you like murder mysteries like Murder on the Orient Express with that kind of vibe, then I think you would really like this one as well. I love trains and the setting of trains. There's just something so nostalgic about old school trains. I really want to go ride a fancy train, you know, like in the wintertime when the snow's falling and, you know, you get some tea served to you, or you go to the compartment or whatever it's called where you eat some fancy little like cakes and tea. Okay, sorry, I'm getting distracted. So it's set on a train. This girl is traveling home from a vacation that she took with her friends, and on this train she notices this woman. But then later on, this woman goes missing, and nobody else seems to have seen this woman. They all don't know what she's talking about, who she's talking about, and they start to think that she might be a bit crazy. So we follow her as she tries to figure out if she's actually crazy and seeing things, or if there really was a woman and now the woman is missing. And the end kind of leaves you with like a type of feeling. It was very good. Highly recommend. It's free on Amazon Prime. And then we've got Agatha and the Truth of Murder. This one's on Netflix. It's a fictionalized recount of this time when Agatha Christie went missing. I think it was for 11 days, but then I read one article that said 9 days. I don't know which one is correct. 9 days or 11 days. Her husband didn't know where she was. No one knew where she was. So this movie is about those 11 days that she was missing. So basically, this lady comes to Agatha Christie and was like, I need you to help me solve a murder. And she's like, I'm a writer, not a detective. I can't help you. But eventually her conscience weighs on her and she decides decides to go help this woman. They end up planning together to invite all of these possible suspects to this manor house for a weekend where they tell them that they're going to be getting money from one of their dead relatives, but really that's just a way to get them there. And while they're there, they interview them and interrogate them and figure out who might be the most likely suspect of this murder. If you want to watch a very aesthetic murder mystery, and the fashion, the hairstyles, even the color grading is just, it's so vintage and was so perfect for the setting of the film. I've watched it twice already just because I liked it so much. There's not as crazy of a twist at the end as some of the other films, but if you want to watch a movie purely for aesthetics and Agatha Christie vibes, then I would definitely recommend this one for you. And next we've got a Hitchcock film. I can't talk about murder mysteries without including one of my favorite directors of all time, Alfred Hitchcock. And this one is To Catch a Thief. This one stars one of the most iconic duos of all time, Cary Grant and Grace Kelly. This one is set in the south of France. It has such a beautiful backdrop, and it's about Cary Grant, who used to be this infamous cat burglar, but he has since retired from burglaring and is living a nice peaceful life when all of a sudden there's a new burglar in town and he is using Cary Grant's name, the cat burglar. So everyone thinks that Cary Grant is back at it again, but he's not. So in order to clear his name, he has to go find out who this burglar is. So this isn't exactly a murder mystery, but it's still a mystery, and that's why I'm going to include it on the list, because we have clues, we have different suspects, we have one main person trying to figure out who did it. And then even if that's not a good enough reason to watch it, if I haven't convinced you, just Grace Kelly. Grace Kelly. We solve the mystery together. It's so good. And then finally, we have one more Hitchcock film, which is Dial M for Murder. And once again, it stars Grace Kelly as our leading lady. In the film, she is married to this not so great husband, and she has had an affair. When her husband learns about this affair, he starts to plan her murder. Because that's just, you know, first option that you want to go to is murder. But Grace Kelly, being the smart woman that she is, starts to figure out that something fishy is going on. So then basically her and the man that she had the affair with try to catch him in the act. But at the same time, her husband has hired, not kind of hired, but is blackmailing an ex-con friend of his into helping him. So we have like two people against two people, and it's so good. Okay, now let's move on to the books. First up, we've got, you okay, table? Okay. We've got Agatha Christie's Endless Night. I had to choose one Agatha Christie to put on here, but I've already talked about this one and then there were none so many times. I do like Murder on the Orient Express. It's good, but this one is unlike any other Agatha Christie book that I've read. This one gave me chills and goosebumps, and I like couldn't go to sleep that night because I couldn't stop thinking about the ending of this one, which is why I'm recommending it to you today. Unlike most of Agatha Christie's book, there is no Miss Marple, there's no Hercule Poirot, there's no detective. We just have our main character, what's his name? Michael Rogers. He discovers this beautiful house called Gypsy's Acre, and it's not really a house, it's like literally a massive estate in England, and he sees that it's for sale. Then he sees this other woman walking along the road. You know, it's like the instant love where he realizes that like this is the woman for him. As they're both fawning over this beautiful estate that's for sale, they come in contact with this woman who tells them that they should leave and shouldn't get anywhere near the place because it's cursed. Later on in the story, they end up together and they end up purchasing Gypsy's Acre, and they come to realize that accidents at Gypsy's Acre are more common than they should be. And by accidents, I mean fatal accidents. Some are born to sweet delight. Some are born to endless night. There's mystery, there's intrigue, and there's the twistiest ending. So if you want to read an Agatha Christie book that will give you literal chills and read kind of unlike any of her other books, pick this one up. Okay, next up, we've got The Vanished Bride by Bella Ellis. And I apologize that it's so bright and reflecty. It's amazing. I am obsessed with this cover. This book is in a series called The Bronte Mysteries, and it's a reimagining if the Bronte sisters were amateur detectives, amateur sleuths before they became writers. I adore the Brontes and Jane Austen, and anything written about them I will pretty much read. A lot of retellings and reimaginings I don't really love, but this one is so good. This is elegant and witty and spooky. Inside of the dust flap says, "A young woman has gone missing from her home, Chester Grange, leaving no trace save a large pool of blood in her bedroom and a slew of dark rumors about her marriage. A few miles away, the daughters of a humble parson, Charlotte, Emily, and Anne Bronte, are horrified, yet intrigued." The way that they defy what society thinks they should be doing, they go trek out in the mud and go to interview these really sketchy people. It's so good. Next up, we've got Enola Holmes by Nancy Springer. This is the book that Enola Holmes, the movie on Netflix, is based on. And if I heard correctly, Millie Bobby Brown's younger sister was reading this series, and she went to Millie and was like, "Hey, you should make this into a movie," and that's how the movie got started. This first one is very close to the movie, but it is definitely a bit different as well. And if you haven't seen the movie, it's about our amazing young detective, Enola Holmes, who is the younger sister of Sherlock Holmes and Mycroft Holmes. And she is not your typical lady. No, she doesn't want to wear corsets and dresses and learn how to embroider. She wants to learn how to fight, and she wants to read all of the books in her library, and she wants to educate herself and to be whoever she wants to be, which I love. This is a classic amateur sleuth book. It's got all of the amateur sleuth vibes. Also, the setting is in the English countryside, but then we've also got some scenes in London. It's just such a good and fun read. And then we've got another middle grade, which is The Scandalous Sisterhood of Prickwillow Place by Julie Berry. Our setting for this one is in a boarding school in England. One day, their headmistress sits down to dinner and drops dead after eating some of the food that was presented at the table. Now, instead of just calling the police and turning it over to the authorities, the girls decide to take it upon themselves to figure out who the murderer is. They all have such unique personalities, they have nicknames for each other, and it gave me major Agatha Christie meets Scooby-Doo vibes. And finally, I've got an adult novel that I just recently read, like last week. It is The Darkling Bride by Laura Anderson. For our setting, we've got the Irish countryside and a deep Rath castle, which has been there for generations, and the same family has lived there for generations. And one of our main characters was a novelist who wrote about the Darkling Bride, which was a local legend about a dangerous woman from long ago who now haunts Deep Rath Castle. And the family ends up hiring an archivist to come to their library and archive everything that is there in the library. And while she's there, we start to wonder if she might be the next victim of the Darkling Bride. I also appreciated that within the first few pages, there are mentions of Daphne du Maurier and Rebecca, which is my favorite book of all time. If you like classics or just the Irish countryside, castles, spooky vibes, then I would recommend this for you. It's not as crazy of a whodunit story. It's a bit more of a slow burn, but it's very atmospheric. Then I think you would like it as well. And those are all of my recommendations. If you have any recommendations for me, please leave them down below. I am so obsessed with whodunits, murder mysteries right now, so please give me all of the recommendations. I hope you're having an amazing autumn, almost winter, but I refuse to put up Christmas decorations yet, no. So I hope you guys are having a great day with all of the warm and cozy vibes, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye guys!